Allie Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host and personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial, who is powering through. I give him lots of credit and grace today. How are you doing?
Hey, Allie, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm on the mend, but it's been a rough week. This is the first day that I've really gotten out of bed, besides to go do an IV drip to get some vitamins and minerals and medicine in the system earlier this week. But feeling a little bit better. Probably will take a nap after this, not gonna lie, but I've got an episode in me today, so we're gonna power through it. We're good.
And if you need, if it so happens to help, you can listen to an episode and then just fall asleep.
Perfect.
The first piece of news this week is from AtoZ Communications client Nitrogen. It announced several new enhancements, including one that I think Brandon's going to be pretty jazzed about during its fall product launch webinar earlier this week. Among the updates is that AI Research Center can be searched using plain language. The example that they gave during the webinar was a stock with certain parameters that will, quote unquote, make me rich. And the LLM translated that into a specific amount of returns within seconds, which is pretty darn cool, at least from my standpoint. Nitrogen's AI Research Center will also have partially illustrated trailing returns. And another enhancement has been the addition of AI Meeting Prep to the AI Meeting Center. This analyzes all the meetings that you're having, so it can provide you information that's vital to get things done in that meeting and make sure that you look like a rock star. Finally, the biggest thing, and the thing that I think you should be most jazzed about, is AI Tax Center, which translates a client's tax return into a visual snapshot so advisors can easily find opportunities and see held away assets. So granted, in the context of you just barely woke up this week, what did you think of that?
Yeah, and I love the headline of this one too, because I mean there's a lot of really cool AI features that Nitrogen just unveiled, but I love that you led with AI tax planning, because obviously I'm biased on the tax planning side, but even as we've talked about the last several weeks at this point, tax planning is just something that more and more consumers are wanting. So even out of all the really cool tools, love that you added the tax planning as the main headline. So of course I thought that was great. But then even the statement reading, the fact that it can do more research as well, and also that meeting note taker all in one. We always talk about what's the purpose, what's the use case of AI, and right now it seems like Nitrogen's really making a good effort to show this isn't just AI as a buzzword, but this is AI with actual value. So I think it's really cool.
Love that. Thank you. Well, the second piece of news this week is BillGO's The Small Business Payments Pulse Report, which found that 43% of small businesses said either inefficient or inconsistent cash flow is their biggest business challenge. And additionally, 49% say late customer payments are one of their biggest cash flow problems right now. So as a small business owner, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can attest to that as well, that when you don't get paid, then it's this trickle effect, and then I didn't pay this. This article made me realize that it really can be that vicious cycle that just starts at one point and then goes straight downstream. But would love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. I mean, cash flow is going to be the lifeblood of any business, whether it's sole proprietorships, really, which is what we are right now. And I did specifically notice the article said that it didn't actually interview business owners like us. It interviewed those that had employees. So that trickle down effect that you're talking about, though, Allie, is only amplified, because now if you've got multiple vendors down the chain, then one doesn't pay. Well, then now the next one doesn't get paid, and then the next one, and then your trickle down that you just mentioned really starts happening, and it could start to cause a lot of impacts, even if your business is, all other things held equal, very healthy. You could be serving your customers, delivering services, onboarding new customers, but if you're not getting paid by your own vendors, it's going to be really hard to sustain operations. Then, of course, if you do have payroll for folks, especially other than yourself, I mean, it's stressful enough to, if we were to get a late payment, we want to make sure we can make our own payroll, if you will, but it's like we are the owner of the business. We can figure it out. But when you have employees and with families to feed, becomes even more important. So yeah, I can see how this trickle down effect is impactful, and any sort of technology to help minimize that. And I haven't had to deal with much fraud in my business. Hopefully you haven't had to deal with much in yours either, but it had mentioned that as a big indicator of some low cash flow as well for folks. So if it's solving all those things, it sounds pretty helpful.
Absolutely. And to your point, so I know personally, sometimes I am guilty, a la the landscaper, of not necessarily paying as timely as I should. Just don't catch them fast enough, or didn't get to the ATM that day. But now this has shamed me enough to realize that I need to get to the ATM, and there is no excuse. So yes, pay people on time.
Or ask other ways that they could get paid too. Because I know sometimes the having to get the cash. I know we've had folks work for us before that were like, "Can we please just use Zelle or something like that? We can go and get cash, but you're going to get paid much faster if you just let us Venmo you or Zelle you or do something electronically." But then again, that's my millennialness, if you will, coming out. Where I'm like, I don't keep cash, and if I have cash on me, I'll pay someone one time, and then now it's gone.
Yeah.
To like go to the ATM, which is almost never.
Exactly. As far as the third piece of news, this is from Streetbeat, which raised $15 million in its Series A to increase AI agent use in trading. As you can tell, this is AI week. So Streetbeat Pro lets wealth managers, brokerages, and other financial institutions use off-the-shelf AI agents to automate investing, portfolio analysis, and risk management. Streetbeat Pro advisors have increased their clients fivefold as a result of using this, and they've raised their AUM by 15% a year. So at least seeing those stats, it seems like there's a direct correlation to automating these kind of tasks that are, not necessarily client facing or things that will dazzle people, to increasing more clients. I'd be curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think it would depend on what the type of tasks are, because sometimes, I mean, even when you read through, you're not exactly 100% sure what specific tasks are being automated. But if I had to cherry pick one off of the top of my head that I think would be helpful for at least a lot of my buddies that run solo firms, something as simple as rebalancing. So instead of going through every single client and having to manually rebalance someone's portfolio, which is a relatively simple transaction, but can be time consuming across an entire book of business, if they're able to have these agents do something like that, where it's not necessarily making an in-depth investment decision. This is supposed to be at 60%. It's at 50%. Okay, how do we make it to 60%? Okay, do that. That's a very overall simple task. So I think when it's things like that, again, you mentioned it, behind the scenes type tasks, I think that's where AI is going to thrive potentially in something like this. But just full transparency, even though I help clients invest their money, I'm not the one that's actually placing the trades on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know what that process is like. Fortunately, I already effectively have that outsourced, not to AI agents, but to the managing partner of the REA that I work underneath of. But I could see for those that don't have that set up, if this is able to improve efficiency, I think that's a solid thing. But what were some of your takeaways from this article in particular?
And I could see how, especially since this is leading to greater AUM and more clients, I could see how it's the same way any of my more menial tasks that are just, gosh, why do I have to spend so much time researching whatever? You know what? I'll use AI and I'll get my research, I'll comb through it, make sure that that's accurate, and now I can move forward. So I could see how that would propel and move more clients into the practice.
Yeah, and I think that's how I took it as well. It's those smaller tasks, because I feel at times you could read it and it's like, wait, is it just automatically making random trades based on data or algorithms? Now again, and if it's something is supposed to do that, that's different. But if it's a buy and hold strategy and it's doing all sorts of stuff, maybe you wouldn't necessarily want that. But if it is, again, more in those menial tasks of important to get done, but it doesn't necessarily need that human. Again, we always talk about where does the human need to be and where does the human not to be. If we've determined the human doesn't necessarily need to be in this, but just more oversight, then yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So basically just echoing what you just said.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I should credit you. So despite the fact that you are not actively making the trades, our investments are doing quite well. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. We'll take it.
Yes. So the last bit of news for this week that caught my eye was thanks to its clever headline. It was Ding Dong, the untold story of how Ring went from Shark Tank reject to everyone's front door. So literally that's basically the title of the book. And it was interesting to see how they structured this news and at least got my attention. In the press release, it noted that Ring was built in a garage and that the head of the firm was using Craigslist to find his talent. Obviously paid off for him. Sometimes you can find talent in unique places. The press release also mentioned that Ring put the mission of making today's neighborhoods safer ahead of the product itself, which ultimately helped them to succeed. So I thought that this was a nice way to show that, can you imagine being rejected on Shark Tank? I just would probably crumble in afterwards, let alone that you take that and whether you learn from it or you feel like that fuels you to be like that much better and like, I'm going to succeed. I thought it was a great lesson of that.
Absolutely. And even through reading the article, it sounded like the founder had multiple times where they felt like they were going to run out of money even throughout the process. And I think now, especially if you think of Ring doorbell, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're a household name, they're this massive billion-dollar company. It was always a straight line up and to the right. It's just in almost any success story even that you hear, it's like never like that. It's almost never an overnight success, and it's almost never just perfectly up and to the right. There's always going to be challenges and obstacles to overcome. I think stories like these are always exciting, regardless of whether you want to build a billion-dollar business or not. It's just, there's going to be challenges. Whether you have just a W-2 job, there's going to be challenges. Whether you have your own business, you're going to have challenges. Whether you have neither of the above, there's just, life is going to have challenges at times. And so I think being able to hear others that have obviously overcome those and have been super successful. And then too, even I thought it was really cool, and you just mentioned it, Allie, that they specifically talked about, they weren't just saying, oh, we want to build this best doorbell camera. It's what was the why behind it. We want to keep more neighborhoods safe. Yes, we want to keep neighborhoods safe. And one of the ways is this awesome doorbell camera, but they truly knew what they were aiming for. And I'm sure that had a massive impact on their success, because they weren't just trying to build a better mousetrap. They were trying to solve a much deeper purpose that pretty much everyone can get behind. I mean, I want all my neighbors to be safe. I'm sure they want me to be safe, and vice versa. So everyone wins in that, and that makes it a lot better story for the company too, and then guides their decisions on how they actually build then the doorbell Ring camera.
Yeah. Absolutely. This was, to your point, it was a definition of a company that's addressed its why. And it feels like once you really have that solid foundation of, I know exactly what I'm doing and the problem that I'm solving, people relate to you so much better, and you can get so much further than the obscure, I offer holistic planning and I have great client service, and like, yes, so does everybody else. Can you explain to me exactly what it is that you do and why I should trust you as opposed to anybody else? If you can't, then we got a problem and we got to keep working on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were clearly differentiated. And like you said, it's the story. And we talked about, I think, maybe it was, I don't remember the exact amount of time. It was in the last couple of months, talked about how important storytelling is in general to marketing and branding in general. So the fact that they could get behind people could get behind the story. And of course, it was a true story as well. I'm sure made it even more impactful for them.
Yes. So before we go, we also spoke about a few weeks ago about how with content, it's very important to do and to remain consistent, and that sometimes you really don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. And so literally, Brandon is the embodiment of that. I'm sure that today, if you had your choice, you would have just laid in bed and not done this right now. But you got to feed the beast. You wanted to help out me, your accountability partner, and I appreciate the fact that you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, I'm feeling a little bit better today. I'm glad that I felt good enough. If I truly felt bad, if this was on Monday, Allie, I would have. I told you pre-show, I would have emailed you like, you don't want me on. I'm gonna not be able to. But no, I was feeling up to it, and you always find good news for us to pick out. And right, that consistency is important, and when possible, I wanted to be here. So happy to be here and help out the show.
Well, thank you. And feel better, all right?
Appreciate it. Thanks, Allie.